Hey folks, welcome.
Oops, hello.
How's it going?
It's going good. How about
Right
yourself?
here. Doing well. Keeping busy. Can't complain.
Yeah.
I'm filling in for Travis a little bit today.
Oh,
He's
okay.
feeling a little under the weather, so we'll do kind of different show than normal. But I'll give it a couple minutes for folks to roll in. I don't have all of the cool tools that he does for intro music and all that fun stuff, but
Gotcha.
yeah. Trevor, I don't know if I've caught you on before. Maybe I just haven't noticed. Have you been on the show before?
Yeah, I've been on a couple times, kind of intermittently.
Oh
But
yeah.
back before like took a break. I come like maybe like every 2 or 3 times. Or
You
every third time or something. Yeah.
You look familiar. I think I was on a call with you a little while ago.
Yeah. It's awesome. I'm really glad that we brought it back.
Yeah. What was the project you were working on?
I'm working on it's a smart container. So it's a container that has a sensor in it and can tell when it's empty, and then like sends a message to the Helium network when it gets empty.
Got it. Okay. What I wasn't talking to you about the VL53L0X thing.
I don't think so. No.
Okay. All right. That was the laser rangefinder sensor, but I did a project 2 years ago, maybe, where it was trying to measure the volume of coffee in basically a big garbage can.
Oh, okay. To like track how much was left, or
Exactly. Yeah,
okay.
it's basically an IoT ruler. So
Yeah.
you know the distance at any time.
Gotcha.
And I'm keeping track as I have to manually admit every single person in this call. So I'm gonna keep hitting the button. For those folks joining, Travis feeling a little under the weather today, so I'm filling in. But we can kind of keep this open forum, see what kind of cool things are happening, see what kind of collaboration opportunities there are. But as always, welcome folks to sort of jump in and share how projects are going, what you're up to. I was just prodding Trevor on his project a little bit, which sounds like it's going.
Yeah, apparently feeling under the weather is happening everywhere. I guess my coworker called in to work today. My boss texted me at 15 before I was supposed to be there or something, or could be there. And he's like, hey, you want some hours? I was like, we got both printers rolling and we got some calls today. So it happens.
It got me last week. So I dragged through trying to get stuff done last week. Fortunately, feeling a lot better.
I think Travis mentioned he was going to do a Helium hacks on the STM32, possibly. Did he do that yet, or did I miss that one, or has he not done it yet?
No, he was just showing me his desk. I chatted with him on Monday, and he's got everything all nicely laid out. He's teeing it up for a nice presentation. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't think he's missed it.
I'm looking forward to that one.
So one of the things that I've been getting to play with is not devices, but I've been putting a ton of work into the Helium docs. So I'll probably try to show off some of the things. I'm proud of some little things in there that we got to add. It's been many hours trying to think about the things that need to be in there.
Have you gotten to play with any? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Nikki.
Oh, I was just going to ask if you've gotten to play with any of the new Class C stuff now that things have kind of kicked over.
I unfortunately haven't. I know I've seen the demos and I just have to trust that it's real. But no, I haven't actually touched like VS Code properly. Well, I guess I kind of did this morning because I was looking up some code for somebody, but my time has been otherwise occupied. It's been really cool to see Disk 91 Paul doing a ton of development with ChirpStack, and it's looking really good. Like he's taking the best parts of what Helium console was with sort of the user experience and all of that, and kind of mashing it in with ChirpStack to try to just make the most powerful and the most user experience friendly thing. So it's going to be exciting to start seeing folks, roll out devices based off of that.
I think now is going to be a pretty decent time coming in with this whole Solana transition and just kind of getting more folks on board. Folks have had a bit of time to try, kind of try stuff and see what works, what doesn't. And I think it's probably a good time to step in and, have some bigger stuff roll out for device onboarding. And like I know we talked about like a universal decoder kind of thing that we can kind of put on the front end of ChirpStack that'll, do all that sort of stuff. So this is going to be a good year, I think. Lots of stuff going on.
It's exciting. And I was just sharing in the hacks channel, was it yesterday? But the Helium Foundation has officially acquired a NetID to represent the Helium network. So previously we're on sort of like a poached NetID, which some people love to poke us about. And so now we are officially type 0, NetID that's 0000, is it C3, 3C? Yeah. So.
Yeah, the other thing about ChirpStack is you're noticing in all of the rack onboarding manuals and the seed onboarding manuals that they have Helium, TTN, and now ChirpStack. So they're starting to, provide a lot of the tools necessary to set up the packet porters and things like that. That didn't exist 6 months ago.
It's kind of crazy to look back and see how much the LoRaWAN ecosystem has evolved in the past 2-3 years. The whole project's actually, whether it's Helium or not, it's definitely put a lot more eyes on LoRaWAN. It's been really cool to see that development.
I thought I saw some sort of some blurb about they were doing a LoRaWAN to Moon project where they had acquired they'd acquired a private spectrum, and they were going to try to start bouncing signals or something like that. I can't remember, but it's getting a lot of traction in the scientific community. So
yeah, there's S-band up there, and then they have some other bands that they'll use as well. And most of the protocols that the birds use are spread spectrum. So, I mean, same reason that it works really well with signal to noise ratio down here, and hitting trees coming straight down from space, it works really great.
There's a university in Canada that wrote a sort of research paper on using the Helium network as a global ground station as sort of backhaul comms for small, inexpensive satellites, which is pretty cool.
That'd be very interesting because, then you could think about doing phased array type of stuff.
I didn't even,
get a group of them, that could.
We got to get our fine time stamping to go down that path. Huh?
What you move is it? Yeah, like the last 3 months, I've been trying to take a deep dive into 3D printing and just trying to get obviously better. You want custom hardware, and to do stuff, you have to be able to design a case and print it out, and so that's all its own stuff or whatever. But that just kind of begs, the whole broader spectrum of like additive manufacturing is that's the next step to space travel long term. And if we're going to be able to communicate with say a terraformed planet, how are we going to be able to bounce signals back and forth if cellular doesn't work and we're able to send messages? I mean, it doesn't it's all along the same lines. Progression, humanity.
You're gonna print a wrench rather than send a wrench up there. If they need a
That's
wrench, you're gonna
that
print one. Yes.
that's legit. That's what I gave my brothers for their birthday. I mean, some other stuff too, but I printed out the NASA print in place wrench, and dude, it freaking works. Like is like an actual like thing. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, Helium made me a big 3D printing nerd. I had a 3D printer before I got involved in Helium, and then I started doing mappers and all that other stuff. It's like, all right, we're going deep down the rabbit hole of enclosures and wall mounts and all that other stuff. So yeah, Fusion 360 gets my money every year now. But
That's honestly what I've been trying to figure out if I want to do, because they have there's this one feature that they do put behind the paywall whenever you import an STL, to have it automatically mesh and face an object so that you're not just building off of other stuff. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm like, God, like that's like one of their killer features that they just make you freaking pay for. So it's pretty worth it.
Well, I was looking at 3D printing for like antennas, okay, with conductive materials and mixed type of matrix. I don't have a 3D printer, but I built this antenna that's a quadricellular helical antenna, and it's just looks like an egg beater. And it was such a pain in the butt. And by the time I got done with it, I said, if I could 3D print this, it would be so much easier. You know, I just upload the slice file and then run with it. But like to just get the forms of the egg beater and the bends, and it took forever. It was fun though. I can get better satellite communications now.
one of these days, one of us will get rich and we'll buy a metal 3D printer, and it'll be antennas for days at that point.
I don't know, dude. If you got one of the new Bamboo Labs and had one of the filament switchers going, they do have that conductive filament for printing small circuitry and stuff like that. I'm sure you'd be able to like put it in the slicer and be like, okay, like this part is conductive, that part isn't. It does the purge for it and builds
The supplier for that is Rogers Electronic Materials, I think. And I do believe they make antenna materials specifically. I've kind of dug into this a little bit.
Oh, that's hot.
Well, the other angle would be electroplating any plastic, I guess. So you could just build a scaffold and then, yeah, either selectively electroplate or just do up the whole thing if the sort of tube format. Oh, is this a sample?
Yeah, this is a copper. I need to take all the supports off, but it's a copper filament. It's 25% copper by weight. And so I'm working on trying to get it patina naturally just with an acid solution. But if that doesn't work, I'm building an electroforming tank because I'm getting this shit freaking done.
Awesome. That'll be cool.
Yeah.
I have not messed with any of those metal filaments. They frankly terrify me, both because of the cost and the nozzle wear and everything else people talk about.
Yeah, that was seriously like the last 3 or 4 months is like building up a machine that'll do it, and like print out. I mean, like something that looks like half decent or whatever. So it's a rabbit hole. It's another giant little rabbit hole.
Scott, how's it going? I was going to talk about docs, and I think you've got doc stuff going on too.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to show for it right now, but I am working on it. And so what I told Travis, or I said at one of these previous meetings, that once I make enough progress, we could allocate some time during one of the hacks to do a demo for using it. But
Cool.
yeah,
I'll demo my thing on docs, which is far, far, far dumber than the thing that you're trying to put together, but I'm still proud of it.
let's see it.
Yeah, so we sort of through the migration, it's clear we needed like new documentation just for about everything, frankly. But we did a new data credits page under the tokens section. And one of the beloved little widgets from helium.com was the data credit calculator. And so now it's in Docs and you can change your various things, and it all updates in real time, obviously, because it's React. But it's just the coolest thing to me that all of our docs are written in MDX, so you can write JavaScript and like embed it right in the page. And it kind of creates this like seamless experience where you can be reading documentation and then like in real time, sort of like just click on a thing and sort of visualize based on what you've learned with what's going on. So I think it just dovetails straight into the stuff you've been talking about.
What else have you used besides Docusaurus? Even before Helium, just like personal experience with docs, writing docs.
Oh, frankly, I've avoided it most of my career. I've done straight, well, like I actually like home rolled a thing with like Express and Markdown once. Yeah, Docusaurus is pretty opinionated, but as long as you're sort of comfortable inside the sort of bounds of this structure, it sort of hits everything you need it to, in my opinion. I can't remember the name of the thing that we used before Docusaurus. There was a predecessor to that for Helium too.
Yeah, there's so many frameworks for making docs. I'm an old fart who used Sphinx in Python and restructured text, which is actually not that old of a fart. But if you go farther back, there's something called ASCII doc, which I guess is one of the old, at this point, relatively very old syntaxes for making documentation that could compile into HTML. And but yeah, restructured text or REST was developed before Markdown, as I understand the history, but then a lot of people moved over to Markdown because it's a lot less cumbersome to write, but also a little less expressive, so you lose some things. There's no free lunch in a way.
I've definitely been getting heavy-handed on just like embedding like the opportunities of MDX over straight Markdown lets me go in and style or throw tags in. So it's like, if I need to just straight write HTML, it's right there, which is pretty nice. I've never actually poked at restructured text before. I'm kind of looking at it right now.
Yeah, it's so old that one of the main links that I had bookmarked for it is on SourceForge. Do the kids today know about SourceForge? Subversion.
Oh, yeah.
Very few, very few, I'm guessing.
I say a word like trunk, and they're like, "What? What's trunk? I don't know."
That's where you get the viruses, right?
Oh, bringing the heat. I'm gonna start a fight out here. Yeah, docutils. So I guess was the project. So here's an old link I can drop into the chat. So and then actually I think there was a big moment in the history of docs development, not to veer too far away from sensor development, but it was Jackal, the Jackal site generator on GitHub.
Can't forget that. That's
Right.
yeah.
And I think that was a pretty big moment for lots of people that they could develop a good looking website in a straightforward way. So anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. I was curious about your experience with Docusaurus, because what's important to me is that I can support someone who's already writing documentation about hardware, like a tutorial, in a way that's very low upfront effort to run the example code on a real device. So, because I think restructured text, if you look at that link or you read more about it, you'll see it's just so expressive, but it comes at a significant learning cost. And so when I was learning it, I had to bookmark the page and refer back to it a lot. But when I learned Markdown, it was very fast. Could get almost all of it down in very short amount of time. I don't remember how long, but
There's definitely a lot of similarities, huh?
yeah, that's true.
Scott, if I can put my experience in, I keep coming back to MK Docs. So that's got both Python and Markdown on its base. So obviously quite basic, but to do basic documentation size, and especially with GitHub CI workflows or GitLab, I keep coming back to that.
Yeah, that's a good reference too. Yeah, I think,
and I'm with Jason on the viruses as soon as you.
I don't know what happened to SourceForge. They really lost their way. Well,
Yeah, do not download any SD card programmers from them. They're not what they say they are.
What happened to SourceForge? I used to very readily download stuff from there, but now I second guess the link. Yeah, MakeDocs is great. I've used MakeDocs a little bit, not in any significant development context, but I thought it does a very good job. Very simple, but what comes out is very good to use. I think another moment, this is my last comment on the documentation topic, is there was the read the docs that came out. This is, I don't know how much traction they gained in hardware context, but read the docs provided a very simple way to connect a GitHub repository to their system where you could create a website with MakeDocs or Sphinx. And it gained a lot of traction in many Python projects that I followed at the time. And then I remember there was some kind of drama because the founders of it were not actually trying to make a business. And then when it became so popular, they could not afford it to run the servers. And they started to put advertisements in the docs. I don't know if anyone was there when that happened. And the drama was people were saying, you're putting an advertisement in the middle of my docs. I just want, this is like an open source project. It's not for profit. Why are you commercializing it? And they said, we can't afford to, you have to donate money or we do ads, basically, because we can't keep it up otherwise. And that's my story. So, but yeah, okay, that's it.
I remember read the docs from all your early hardshare documentation. I think it's still up there, right?
Yeah, I was trying to point over to a new website. So I bought a domain. So now it's docs.hardshare.dev. Oh, mostly because I wanted to have more control over it. I didn't want to have to read the docs in the domain. And
sure. You could sell your own ads now.
That's right. Just stay tuned. You're gonna try to flash your firmware, but a little ad's gonna pop up in your terminal before it finishes flashing.
It's all hardware ads like MCUs and
that's right. There'll be a little link to the new Nordic chip right there in your terminal.
Honestly, you could probably do a thing with Newegg. Newegg's like big into like social media marketing now, and just be like, hey, like we have one of these Newegg blurbs from TikTok, coming in. It's wild, dude.
Yeah, that's interesting. Could do it. Well, okay, yeah. So I was using Read the Docs, and but then I started to host it separately. Also, it's because I switched over the website. So I think this happens with Docusaurus, Joey. You probably experienced this. To get some of that interactivity, there's a whole React framework now. Like Docusaurus is a fairly sophisticated website that comes out of the generator. And like MakeDocs, which is MKDocs, or Sphinx, we're just generating static HTML. And I do remember in the case of Python documentation, there was a moment when they started to add JavaScript, and they were very careful to say this is experimental. We're going to include some JavaScript in the code that's generated from the rest. and you could do things like hide the navigation bar, and that was the interactivity. Not to make myself sound really old, but yeah. And you had to opt into that. But then Docusaurus uses React, and so I don't know if Read the Docs has fully come up to date with this new feature of modern TypeScript and React in the site that they generate. But yeah, I started to use Next.js, and I don't have a server-side component yet, but one reason I set up a separate domain is I thought there might be a server-side aspect of this docs.
Next is pretty cool. I'm still sort of wrapping my head around just like what to deploy server side versus front end and how to sort of fully take advantage of it. But we use it just about everything for any Helium front end stuff. It's been pretty good. Actually, the really good reference for just general Next.js development is the old Explorer. The whole thing's written end to end in Next.js. The new Explorer is also. There's just a ton of stuff that got built into the old Explorer that makes for really helpful. Like we just keep going back to it. It's like, wait, how did the old Explorer do this? So.
Yeah, that's cool. But I think the challenge for documentation is to leverage these new environments or new tools like Next.js, but to minimize the exposure that the writer has to it.
Yeah. So for the Helium docs, I've found ways to simplify the writing experience with VS Code plugins, actually. So there's a bunch of sort of like opinionated styling for how the, I guess, repository maintainer wants to see things put together, just Sam Gutentag on our team. And so rather than telling people like lines shouldn't be more than 100 characters long, like you can configure VS Code to put a ruler in there and run prettier every time you save a file or whatever that is. And some of that stuff is like a nice quality of life improvement when you're sitting there writing docs. I actually just added the Grammarly plugin because of too many late nights writing docs and shipping a ton of typos and spelling errors. So it's kind of nice having that embedded in as well. And so when you actually pull down the repo, VS Code will pop up and say, hey, these are recommended plugins for this repository. And then you can run it and all the configurations like loaded in there already. But yeah, without that, it would be a pretty like raw experience. And you'd have to be doing like a bunch of reference to see what steps need to be taken to push something up.
That's exciting. Very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Still not perfect, but none of these things none of them have like nailed it, right? Like there's some like a good like GUI experience.
Well, yeah, the other extreme is the what you see is what you get kind of editor, right? And I learned about one recently, or a tool for making these kinds of drag and drop editors called Grape.js. They call it Web Builder, but what it is like if you have a composer in your email client, yeah,
this already makes me anxious.
Yeah.
These drag and drop things.
Yeah, you end up getting a lot of cruft or a lot of noise right in the output. It looks really messy. That's true. I have no comfort to offer you there.
I know. Yeah, these are. I'm actually a pretty big fan of like Webflow has kind of brought me around on some of these things. Like there's some good stuff out there, but I always still get anxious about this.
Yeah, though I do think docs are also a special opportunity for community or for anyone to participate, because it's the kind of thing where you can contribute something and you don't have to worry that you're going to break someone's build process or like an example of code, because it's ultimately just docs that they run in the human's mind. They don't run on the hardware.
Right. Yeah, no, you gotta subtract all of the. It's one of the things that we struggle with, and I think Leo's sort of pointing at this. It's like we'd love to get as many people contributing to docs, but also there's this like learning curve to even knowing where to jump in and contribute or how to jump in and contribute. Leo, I don't know if you're pointing at VS Code just being not your IDE of preference, or if it's like people just aren't going to load VS Code or any IDE.
Now you're preaching to the converted here. I mean, I'm a big VS Code user, so that, but not everybody out there that is contributing to projects is, and that's sort of what I meant. And that's why sort of coming back to Markdown, there's so many tools that you can actually write Markdown, even with the dreaded graphical user interfaces. If you're so inclined, I'm probably not, and I don't think most in the audience here are, but yeah, I've had a couple of documentation projects involving sort of more less technical minded people, and VS Code is probably a bit of a step too far for a few.
Yeah, it's definitely scary. First time you open it up, there's these little buttons all over the place. None of them have labels. It's a lot. Anyway, I didn't mean to railroad the whole show with documentation. It's just the life I've been living for the last 2 weeks. So. It's fun to nerd out on this a bit. Trevor, can I kick it back to you and get a status update on the container project? Any new stuff to share on that?
Sure. Yeah, I'm actually working on. So I've got like I built a couple prototypes with the WizBlock kit, and now I'm trying to take it, and I'm not sure if this was the right move or not, but I'm trying to design a custom chip with the STM32 on it, and I've got the board like printed and it's built, and now I'm trying to get it connected to the Helium network. So I'm like trying to write the firmware right now on it.
Wow. So wait, you've got a custom PCB in hand now?
Yeah. I don't know if you can see that, but it's it's kind of hard to see, but it's not. But anyways, I had an electrical engineer help me design it. And yeah, it's got like the STM32 WL55, I think, or something like that, which also has the SM126X or something like inside of it, which is actually the thing that is like the LoRa radio. So anyways, yeah, I'm not a firmware engineer by trade. Like I'm a web engineer, so it's like I'm learning a lot and trying to figure out like all this like all the C code and stuff, but it's pretty fun.
That's awesome.
But what did you use
exciting.
to lay it out? Did you use KiCad or to lay out your board? You know,
that part I had the electrical engineer that's helping helping me did that part. So I'm not sure exactly what he used actually.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
it looks nice. I mean, it's a nice,
yeah,
pretty compact layout and everything. Yeah. So, and then what radio did you say you were using again?
So I think it has is it the SM126X or something? It's a Semtech chip that's like inside the.
Yes.
The way I understand it, it's actually inside the STM32.
1262. Yeah.
Yeah.
1267, 62. Okay.
Yep.
I'm with you.
How did you go with really the radios? Go, Jason. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to know how you went with the radio circuitry, because that obviously doesn't have the RF circuitry in the on the module. How did you go with that?
Yeah. So, are you talking about like the crystal? If I might be speaking like I'm new to this, so I don't know exactly the terminology, but there's like a crystal that needed to be placed on the chip as well. And then there's like a bunch of resistors and capacitors also that like lead out to wherever the antenna plugs into it. And so the electrical engineer helped me design that. But I think he said that actually the like Semtech has a basically like, hey, this is the circuit that you should have between the board and the antenna. And so we basically just copy and pasted that. And, we haven't actually connected it yet, so I don't know if it works, but hopefully Hopefully
Yeah,
it
that's
does.
the that'd be the front end impedance tuning circuitry, and they Semtech does have some awesome design guidelines on there, and it's proven. Like you just you know which resistor, inductor, and capacitors to kind of throw in there to get a gross value, and yeah, you go from there. Yep,
Yeah.
their design guides are really nice.
Okay. Anybody has any advice on if they've used any of the like STM libraries or anything to write the code that actually connects to the Helium network? That would be super helpful.
What are you trying to get it to do?
Well, right now I just want to get it to connect and send a message every day, basically. So I just want it to like connect, sit there, and then send a message every day is what it needs to do. And there's going to be a sensor that's connected to it, and it'll grab the value from the sensor and send it up. Yeah.
From a LoRa standpoint, just point to point, not LoRaWAN. The ST, I think, is using the Radiohead library sometimes for that. There are some other libraries available. Arduino has a lot of stuff for ST. And so even at that basic level, but then from there, if you go up to Platform IO, you're going to be able to hand pick which libraries you really, really want. There's a lot of stuff out there for examples on 1262s, and especially ST.
Okay.
Yeah. Look up stuff on the Blue Pill. ST makes a device called the Blue Pill. And I think it's exactly what you're discussing that you've kind of made. I think it has a 1262 and it has the ST. Yeah, I think it's the ST32. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually learned about the Blue Pill after I had already like started
Exactly.
creating this one. I'm like, oh, that could actually probably been easier just to use that to start with.
Hey,
But
now you know it
too
inside
far
and out.
down this path. So
That's the best way to learn, man. Just build it.
yeah.
Yeah,
my
I do the
first
same all the
microcontroller.
time. I'm like, oh, there's this wheel thing I just made. Oh, well, wait a second.
Yeah. Oh well.
I did
learned
my
a lot.
first microcontroller stuff on the microchip 16F505 or something like that. And it was like sort of the pre-Arduino era. So you had to have this thick ass manual that would tell you every single like address for stuff. But that was definitely the learning curve that made everything else feel infinitely easier afterward.
Yeah.
Yeah, because after you hook up the 1262 through SPI, it's just SPI to another radio. It's the same like pinout. They all have once you get this set with one radio, you got a core of code that you can now port very easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, it's a good exercise.
Yeah, it's been fun. The WizBlock stuff though, that was actually really easy to use. Like I got that and I got that like hooked up in a couple of hours and it was like really, really nice. There was good documentation and stuff on it. And like, it was super easy to get something working.
That's great to hear. My go-to has just continually been these cube cells because they're so cheap. And
How much are
just
those?
easy to work. 13, 15 bucks.
Okay.
But it's pretty bare bones for the like base level one. It's a charge controller, a bunch of pinouts, RGB LED, 2 buttons, and your LoRa stuff. That's about it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you can run a battery on it.
And you can get the other version of that with an LCD is the ESP32. They're out to a V3 right now, and they just released V3. I have
build a
one. I
mapper.
just hooked it up. Yeah, those things are great because they got the LCD right there, and it works on so many different levels. Like there's the PAX counter. You could set it up with Meshtastic. It's just such an easy device to work with.
Until you
and then whip on it if you were gonna use the cube cell board, because I ordered some and I was gonna onboard a PIR sensor on it, and start working on it this week. So I was just curious whether antenna whip was required for the cube cell board.
It comes with one, actually. You're asking about the antenna?
Yes, we ordered it from the Parlay Labs. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll get one of these little antennas with it.
Oh, you do get it? Because when I looked at the Parlay Labs website, they didn't have on it. I went to the CubeCell official site, but they said that they were out of stock. And I was actually trying to finish this project for this hackathon, and I didn't see the whip on it. I asked Travis, and he did say that you might get away with it, but I'm not quite sure since you've already used it. So I'm just curious whether you need an antenna whip or not.
If it's the one if it's a cube cell and you've ordered it from Parlay Labs, it will come with an antenna. I can say that because I ordered these from Parlay Labs. Worst case scenario, you could get crafty with little bits of wire.
And with the AB01, because I saw that the newer version came on to like AB02, but I'm kind of working with AB01.
Yeah, that's what I got here.
Oh yeah. Makes me feel excited. I don't have a tech background, and I repeatedly say like I'm not an engineer, and all what I'm doing is from the guidance of like the Helium community. So it always keeps me excited. Do you have any specific documentation? I did collect some from your GitHub repositories because I watched your video on the IKEA stuff, and so I've been like copying it, how to onboard it on the Helium network. So should I use that, like a specific GitHub?
Are you building the air quality sensor? Is that, you mentioned a hackathon project? I'm kind of curious about that. But the GitHub for that project is probably a great start if that's what you're building. If you're not already in the sensor dev channel on Discord, I would jump in there and sort of flag some folks down. Because like I just shared some code for somebody that was building a range sensor in there.
I'll be working with the PIR sensor. So it's like a high let go AM3112 mini paralytic PIR human sensor, because I've got already like people that have subscribed to use it as a burglar intrusion alert sensor. We just want to experiment it with, because it's like really affordable for them. These are like lower income people. So we would just want to try out and see how that works. I know that they're like advanced camera sensing AI stuff that Travis told me about, but it just went above my head right now since I don't have a code background. Travis was very helpful. He explained me bit by bit, like everything that he was doing and how I could do that. For the hackathon also, my other friend, he tagged him with me, should be on the call, Justin Thomas. And so we're using the Seed Studio and a pH sensor. We'll be using that to monitor pH level at a chemical plant. And thank God you told me about the screens. The screen is quite interesting because what we're trying to do is we're trying to create like a digital monitor right next to the sensor. So the workers don't have to go and take the readings anytime. Just can go there and they can sit there. I mean, just go there and just look at that. So I don't know if that is also doable on a CubeCell board. Looks interesting, but Seed Studio data logger, that's what we ordered. And we'll be trying to finish it because it was pretty simple. Travis already has a video on it. So we'll try to finish that first and then move to CubeCell. I'm a fan of CubeCell. I tried to grab some CubeCell, but they weren't available in India for the engineers that were working. So I had to go and set with like Adafruit. But here in the States, since I'm here, it was pretty easy for me to get the CubeCell. So I will be onboarding the PIR sensor there. I mean, these are like, I'm like at a very rudimentary level. So if I get this device onboarded on the Helium network, and the rest of the coding for the PIR sensor, I mean, I'm a quick learner. I start cloning real fast, like a board,
That's awesome. I mean, everything you said, it sounds like you're on the right track. You just keep going. Yeah. Jason's like nodding. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Oh, sorry.
So-
What is the hackathon?
Oh, Tanner reached out to me on Twitter. I was
Oh, that
telling
one.
him how I was trying to have this very potent idea of healthcare sensors, where, I mean, this is all to be developed. It's in the plans. The great part is that I have already selected people that are willing to participate on this. And Tanner reached out to me, and I just shared some of the things. And he's part of an entity in Denver called LavaDAO, and the Twitter handle is HNT Denver. He invited me to the Discord too. So he's hosting a hackathon. I told him, like, I really don't care about the price. For me, that value is secondary. As much the knowledge is very important. So I think he has an organization which is like a registered entity in the state of Denver. So he's hosting a hackathon. I think the last day of submission for proposals is on 29th. And I think you have to be present in Denver, or I think someplace in Colorado. I have to just look it up again to present whatever you're making on the Helium network. Basically, he's asking that. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, Justin just posted the Helium Denver organization link, and so that's what he's been trying to do. I really didn't ever look at the prize money, because if I'm able to onboard a Helium sensor um, to the Helium network and then know the whole process, I can just give it to the engineers there in India. I've already made a band of them. The problem is they don't know about the LoRaN network. They use something called the EPS technology, which uses the cellular Wi-Fi. They use the Node MCU. They use the Node MCU. So these are engineers that have already done projects like sound sensor with a reputable company in India called the Tata Motors. Like they're all over. They own Land Rover, Jaguar. So they have a manufacturing plant. So I saw their paper, reached out to them, and through that, like, I just understood, like, hey guys, like, you don't need a Wi-Fi. The place where we actually deployed the sensor using a Wi-Fi network, the Helium network is already available for you guys for free. I mean, almost like it's like so cheap. It's like dirt cheap for data credit. And so I just tagged along with. So whatever I learn, I will just pass on to them, and then they'll start replicating and make a host. Because you got a billion people, a country with a billion people, and I'm just like blown away by the amount of data credits that could be burned. I mean, that will be incredible. And they need sensors. They need smart cities. So they need to be efficient. If they're not efficient, I mean, their cities won't function. And then Wi-Fi Dub also comes out from Bangalore, India, which is using like, I don't know what's happening with that project, but that laser technology is already being adopted by other people in India, other than the Helium people. So that's my goal, basically, to learn this whole coding process, explain it to the people there so they can start experimenting with it, and kind of open the door for them to come into the Helium community, because ultimately the goal is for massive DC use and DC burns.
So Mark, if you're into the cube cells and you're trying to count or like sense people in any sort of way, there's a couple PAX counter projects that upload to the Helium network that use the cube cell, the ESP32 version, and it detects either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi signal coming off of a cell phone, and uses that as a PAX counter, essentially. And there's already a pretty decent amount of code to have it upload to the Helium network and already go. So that could be another option for sure.
Slight caveat there, Nikki. You're not counting people, you're counting devices.
Yeah, exactly, right?
This is a scenario. Okay, so that's why I wanted to. So one of my relatives, she went outside, and she came back to visit some relatives. Okay, she came back after 2 days, and her son is an engineer, and she found her whole house like ransacked, like people entered the house, and so she's like, I don't have cameras. I can't afford it. It's expensive. So is there a solution? And I just tried to look around with it, and it just came out of my mind. Like, if she had an infrared sensor the message could go to her in some way. We could have an app or build some technology, and we've already done that. So I started playing with temperature sensor in August, and then I bugged, hacked this and that a lot on that. So he trained me how to do that. We were able to deploy some of those temperature sensors at grocery store. So I know how to send over the alerts to the end user. So that's how the journey began. And since her son is an engineer, we just started like, we just want to build it. And so if there's any burglary that happens, I don't know if this is the most efficient way that we can track it, the most economical way. So that's the whole journey, the whole background basically. And thank you guys for helping me. I mean, it would be not possible if you guys aren't there.
I just dropped a link to a little chip that Seed Studio also sells. It's like a little radar detector, basically. I have not played with them, but it's an alternative to the PIR.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing all that. It's awesome to hear what you're building and sort of the different directions you're going on, like solving problems. And the PIR sensor as a means to just sort of get your foot in the door and sort of have a conversation about building a thing. It's a perfect way to jump in. Can't tell you how excited I am about that. It's very cool.
The other side that ESP32's, although platforms work really well with, is the Home Assistant. So, you could integrate this thing within kind of like a home monitor security system, and give the user an end, kind of porthole to kind of view the status of their whole house, smart house. So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought at one point in time there that we had talked about just kind of ways of integrating some of the MQTT crossover with Helium and Home Assistant, because that would be really awesome. I mean, Home Assistant's come out with a couple different devices just within the last couple months that, I mean,
I've seen a few people make progress that way, and full integrations, MQTT. Helium, LoRa versus LoRaWAN. So all those variants, I've seen that pathway burnt. So it does exist. The other side too is that, I guess you could throw Node-RED in there, with some logic and a few other things, and really kind of make a fairly tight system. But yeah, those pathways with the new one, and I haven't tried it out, but I tried the ESP32 Home, and it was kind of a little bit weird. But Matter is what's being used by a lot of the ESP32 platforms to talk amongst itself. And I haven't tried it, but I don't know specifically if that's what they used with this latest integration, but they were mostly all Heltex. So, yeah, it does work. I haven't done it myself though.
If you're comfortable with the MQTT, Jason, it works actually quite well. But I find that the sort of reason why uptake of LoRa sensors in the Home Assistant ecosystem isn't there is because, yeah, it's just left to the more technically inclined people at the moment. So I think it'll need a little bit of sort of integration code for it to work. I think that's probably something that I would, if I would be in the foundation shoes, would throw some grant money at, I would say.
That kind of brings us back to the whole universal Python decoder as a front end for MQTT for sensors. I mean, like that would be the route realistically. There's a couple of examples. Yeah.
Just run a broker. Just run a broker at that point, Nikki.
Well, I mean, it would be nice that if it were just a full script that ran in Python ahead of everything and just caught every incoming message, did like an initial guess decode of what it is. Ubidots does it.
Well, like Cayenne is supposed to do that, and it is it's not, to me, I don't know. I get frustrated with it. Sorry.
No,
That's if you use the KN libraries on the device, and unfortunately, not enough people are sort of thinking about standards on sending data up front. So
I
KN
think
probably.
MQTT is it. Yeah, I think that's definitely. It was written for IoT devices. It's made for edge devices. Where they might lose battery and not get to squawk and you know.
One of the
Yeah,
beauties
yeah,
about MQTT is you can feed Node-RED, and then Node-RED can decode in the
Yeah.
cloud. So
Yeah.
like you don't even have to have a useender
it's like
end
AI
user.
logic. Your
Yeah.
logic's all up in the cloud. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I'm working on a project with MQTT and like trying to integrate with LoRa and Wi-Fi just for like high availability for like high value crops and stuff like that. And it's pretty interesting. MQTT is awesome, and then you add LoRa in the radio aspect, and it gets even
They're
cooler.
perfectly paired. Yeah. So you
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
radio coming in, and then you pipe it. Your backhaul just goes straight to MQTT, and you can hit anything.
Are you doing like smart agriculture, farming stuff like that, trying to get optimization going, or?
Yeah, so I'm working on switch right now. I have MQTT switching like some basic relays. So those relays can turn on like valves for irrigation, and then I have like a SDI 12. These are time domain reflectometry, and they do volumetric, water content, EC, and temp. So yeah, I'm just trying to build like a crop steering solution to like reduce inputs and costs for agriculture. Yeah.
So like a closed loop, you want to be the feedback from the sensor and say turn on pump, turn off pump, like a controller that way. Is that what you're looking at?
Dude, it is so ridiculously simple. Like
Yeah.
like you look at it and you think it's tough, but like
Yeah.
you get a reading from this SDI 12 sensor. The sensor gives you the reading in like plain text. Well,
Yep.
ASCII. So you just feed it to MQTT, feed that to Node-RED. Node-RED does some logic. It's like,
You're doing
okay, the
logic
soil
all up there.
sensor's
Okay.
like the soil
Yep.
sensor, the soil's 40% moisture. It turns on the relay, waters the garden until it has enough water.
Yeah.
The soil sensor says, hey, I have 60% water content now. So Node-RED says, okay, shut the relay off, and my garden waters itself.
I did the same thing, but I didn't go through MQT. I put all the code and logic inside my firmware. Like it's just a controller. It was basically a PID controller, portion or derivative. So yep. But yeah,
so I want to like open source. So
stuff.
that's why I was like, MQTT leaves so many paths open. You know what I mean? Because like you said, ESP home, home assistant, wherever you want to go. And then you add, all the other stuff with LoRa too. And the possibilities are endless. And then LoRa makes outdoor farming possible. So like not having to have a huge amount of infrastructure on top of your sensors, just having one tiny little piece of infrastructure for thousands and thousands of sensors. So yeah, it's just I'm excited. It's cool.
Yeah. Fun
Hey,
stuff.
Sim, where did you get that SDI TDR sensor from? Or the probe?
That sensor is a that's a what is it called? Aclima. So Aclima.
Yeah.
TDR 310W, and then I have like some Stevens like Hydrologic. These things are like stupid money, like crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Money.
That's sort of why I'm asking. I'm always on the hunt for some reasonably priced probes in that field.
So one of the big things that I'm working on with like Rock is so Rack actually has a super affordable $6 SDI module, and the SDI module actually comes with a slave example. So you can take like any analog input, any other digital input, and then you can just send it over the SDI 12 slave. And SDI 12 is pretty amazing because you can use an external power supply on the bus. and it's 12 volts. So if you break the bus out, you can fit up to 64 addressable sensors on the bus. So
You're talking about the WIS
impressive.
block, the
Yeah, WIS
SDR12.
block.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And similar, it's the RS485 does about the same thing with the RS485. I don't know which one's faster or slower, but yeah, they're basically combining everything, multiplexing it into a serial signal, and then
Yeah.
pulling it out the other end.
Yeah, SDI 12 is a little bit more peppy, and you can pull all the sensors at once and then wait for them to reply. Opposed to RS485, you have to kind of go through each sensor one at a time.
You're indexing with
It
chips.
is.
Right,
It's an
yeah,
absolute pain in the. It's a pain in the ass, really. But it's the standard in weather and soil moisture. So unfortunately, you have to learn to live with it in that field.
Yeah. It is. You find it there a lot. Yep.
I feel like we're just diving into all sorts of cool stuff, but I'm also noting the time. I think we'll probably call it for this show. Thanks for everyone jumping on and sort of pitching in. We'll get Travis back hopefully next week. He can. I think he's got some cool talks planned. He was showing me his whole roster on Monday. But yeah, have an awesome week and keep on building. Thanks all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Thanks.